It's been said that there are more stars in the sky than there are grains of sand on the shore of this planet. And when our ancestors looked at the night sky, they saw a variety of things. Some of our ancestors saw the gods. This is where we get the constellations. Some of our ancestors, particularly our indigenous ancestors, they saw their own ancestors, or they saw spirit guides, animal spirits. Some of our ancestors, even just sitting around the campfire, looked up and they saw what they imagined to be others sitting around their own campfire who maybe were looking back down on us. Regardless, what holds all of these stories in common is that there is this common wonderment with looking at the night sky. And really this common question, are we alone? Who is out there? Who is maybe watching us? And in this series, if you're just joining us for this week, this series is called The Great Beyond. It's really a series approaching these deep questions of mystery that have held so much power not only in our own lives, but in the consciousness of humanity. And yet it's approaching these questions in what I hope is a spiritually practical way, in a way that we can actually integrate into our own lives. And so today's message is called Our Cosmic Neighborhood, because it's asking the question, are we alone in the cosmos? And I can only imagine that it's a question that you may have asked at some point in your life. And we generally have come to different conclusions in a group this size. Maybe some of you look at a video like that and you say, well, yeah, the size of the universe, the scale of the universe is just so incredibly massive. How could we be alone? Or maybe some of you had said, yeah, I agree with that, but at the same time, the conditions for life on this planet are so incredibly rare. And on top of that, we haven't heard anything, we haven't seen anything, so maybe we are in fact alone. Or maybe you had or continue to have a religious framework that doesn't exactly know where to place this concept of perhaps the fact that we're not alone in the universe. Or maybe you've relegated the idea of life on other planets to folklore, like Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, UFOs. If you spent any time in Sedona, you've probably come in contact with this idea, Find Bigfoot. There's a Sedona exploration guide that guarantees money back if you don't see a UFO, which I think is pretty bold. I'm curious, though, and again, zero judgment, but just in a room this size, I'm fascinated to know, how many of you believe that there might be something out there in the cosmos? Okay, all right. How many of you have witnessed something in the sky that you maybe have yet to be able to explain and are willing to kind of chalk it up to maybe something out there? All right, okay. In the last 5 or 6 years, the conversation around life on other planets has shifted quite a bit. See, for most of our lifetimes, this conversation has been relegated to tinfoil hats and the Twilight Zone. You know what I'm talking about? In 2017, the New York Times actually released a series of videos that were supposedly from the Navy, from the U.S. Navy. And they were videos that really displayed these U.S. Navy pilots coming in contact with some sort of craft or phenomena in the sky that did not move or operate like we know human craft to operate. And so this article and this presentation of these videos, really stirred things up quite a bit. But even going a step further, in 2020, our Pentagon actually took ownership over the videos. They confirmed that these were in fact Navy videos and that these were in fact craft that come from an unidentified origin. Now, the conversation has shifted somewhat. What we used to call UFOs, because of these revelations, it's now commonly termed UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena. And there are actually right now committees in our government that are at work investigating reports of these things. So it's the temperature, the tone has changed quite a bit in the last few years. And if you're curious about any of those claims, please do your own research. But my intention for today is not to try to lead you to some particular conclusion of whether or not there is life on other planets. No, I have two goals. And really these goals are to create an invitation that we might expand our view of our place in the cosmos. And two, that we might question how we relate to that mysterious other, whether that mysterious other is life on other planets or life on this planet. It's been said that when looking at the night sky is to all of space as the shore is to the ocean. And what that metaphor is really speaking to is the fact that all we ever see is just a small sliver of what's actually out there. But luckily, we have tools that have given us the opportunity to see beyond what our eyes can see. On Christmas Day of 2021, we launched the James Webb Space Telescope. And this is the most advanced viewing technology that we have of space. Here are some photos that have come just in the last 2 years from the James Webb Space Telescope. Such a broad view of what's actually out there. Incredible beauty. Trusty old Saturn. I looked at that photo, I was like, there you are, Saturn, just hanging out, you know. I've never seen a photo that clear of Saturn, though. But beyond the beautiful imagery provided by the James Webb Space Telescope, we also have information and data that we're gathering from this tool. And one of the more recent findings of the James Webb Space Telescope is the discovery of a handful of galaxies that are far, far older than we ever thought possible. A discovery of a couple galaxies that actually show up in what we would estimate as 300 million years after the Big Bang. Now, again, scientists estimate that the universe is 14 billion years old. So 300 million years is incredibly young in the timeline. And the discovery of these galaxies actually transform our idea of how the Big Bang even functions. Which I'm just barely getting my head around the first thing. I don't have room for okay. But every new discovery provides us not with a smaller view, but a larger view. That there's even more, it's even greater, and it's even more mysterious than we previously thought. And generally speaking, a larger view of the universe equates to a smaller view of ourselves. And this is true not just in the cosmos, but in our lives, right? Anyone here had moments where your life, your universe, wasn't exactly what you thought? That your universe expanded and shifted, and your view of yourself shifted right along with it. I know me, in my own spiritual journey, so much of what has happened is what I would call expansion, that my ideas of God, spirituality, my own life have just continued to expand. And yeah, it's beautiful and amazing, and it's also terrifying at the same time. In the 15th and 17th centuries, two visionary thinkers, Copernicus and Galileo, came forth and really presented what we would consider a heliocentric view of our solar system, meaning that the sun was at the center of the solar system rather than what we had previously thought, which was that the earth was at the center. And the church at the time could not stand for this. They considered both of these men to be heretics. Galileo was imprisoned and eventually released and put on villa arrest, which sounds a lot better than house arrest. Probably not great because he was there for the rest of his life, but I could get down with villa arrest a lot more than house arrest. It would be like mansion arrest these days, but but the church was threatened by the heliocentric view because it challenged what had been previously thought, which was that humans were at the center of the universe. And if we're being honest, the church didn't just place humans at the center of the universe, they placed certain humans at the center of the universe. But any time we're invited to expand We are being invited to see a view of the world, of the universe, that is more than just about me. It's more than just about my people, my tribe. It's more than just about my religion or my country. It's more than just about my species, humanity, and maybe it's even more than just about life on this planet. And this shift outwards of having a center that is continually moving outwards is demonstrated very, very clearly in the basic shift from egocentric to ecocentric. And this is a shift that has been remarked upon by the World Economic Forum, which met in January 2020 to discuss some of the grave problems facing our world environmentally. And really what they came to was that our greatest threat is the fact that we as humans have an egocentric view versus an ecocentric view. And they describe the egocentric view as this: we humans view ourselves as separate, dominant, and superior to nature. We see nature as a commodity to buy, sell, extract, and exploit for our own interests. For well over a century, academics, thought leaders, and indigenous leaders have warned against the commodification and exploitation of nature, and yet this attitude persists. We have developed a dualistic view of our existence on this planet, one that blinds us to our interdependence and interconnectedness with nature, and which has also created enormous divides in our society and across humanity. But then they explore what could potentially be found in the shift to an ecocentric view. The environmental crisis is in fact a deeper spiritual crisis. We must shift the way we view and relate to nature and understand that it is a single living organism which is inextricably interconnected. We must adopt an ecocentric mindset whereby we are grateful to and revere nature rather than consider ourselves superior to it. This is an example of what happens when we move our center outwards. And yet any time that this happens, whether on the planet or just in our own lives, it is a destabilizing event. It is a decentering event. See, yeah, there's potential that there's life on other planets, but I'm certain that in your own lives, in my own life, that we all experience these moments of decentering, of destabilizing. Maybe for you, it was religion, your view of God. I know for a lot of us, we can have a view of God that we think places God at the center or the universe at the center, and really, we're still at the center. Or maybe it was a moment when you fell in love, and your reality went from being about you to being about that other person. And then maybe you had a child, and your center moved from you and your partner to that child. But any time our center moves outwards, we are given a choice. We can expand with this destabilizing event. We can expand, we could surrender to it, we could evolve with it, or we could double down. We could fight back, we could resist, we could dig in and press in against that change. See, whether it's life on other planets or it's just plain life, we are all going to be given opportunities for our universes to get bigger. And for me, it's really fascinating to see how, certain structures of religion respond to these circumstances. Given the opportunity to see the sun as the center of the universe, religion called it heresy. And I've already noticed that in certain religious circles, talk of life on other planets is regarded as, those are demons, or that's just an illusion. And part of this is because religion, in many functions, exists to center, to stabilize, to ground, to provide certainty. And don't get me wrong, there is absolutely a time for centering and for stabilizing. There are moments in our lives where we experience chaos, where things feel like they're in free fall, and what we need is to be centered, is to be stabilized. Absolutely. But I also wonder if religion has another function, one that is much less appreciated in today's world, and that's the function of destabilizing. That religion can also be an opportunity for us to move our center outwards, to be decentered. That religion in moments challenges us to go bigger, that your spirituality, and again, if that word religion doesn't work for you, replace it with spirituality, replace it with, your view of the universe. But these are opportunities and moments that challenge us to go bigger. There's a prominent figure in the Judeo-Christian worldview known as Abraham. And Abraham is seen to be the father of many, in that we consider not just Judaism and Christianity, but also Islam to be Abrahamic religions, because they all root back to this one individual. And in the story, in the Hebrew scriptures, Abraham has a promise made to him by God, and God is saying, I will establish a people and a nation through you. And in Genesis 22, verses 17 and 18, he says this, I will make sure, this is the promise to Abraham, I will make sure your descendants are as many as the stars of the heavens and the grains of sand on the shores. I reaffirm my earlier promises that your descendants will possess the lands and sit in the gates of their enemies. And this is the key part. And from your descendants, all the peoples of the earth will discover true blessing. See, at this time and in this region, any kind of cultural or tribal mythology was meant to prop up that culture, that tribe, that people. Our tribe is better than your tribe, and our gods are stronger and better than your gods. And what's being said here is that this thing being done through Abraham is actually for everybody. It's for everyone. It's a decentralizing, a decentering, creating a bigger, larger view. And even if you don't want to take this story literally, just from an anthropological point of view, we see an entirely new type of worldview emerging into human consciousness. And moving forward, we see Jesus, who further transforms and further expands his own Jewish tradition. And he often would say things like, you've heard it said, but I say, or you've been taught this, but I bring this to you. And really what he's saying in these moments is, how can we expand even further than what we've known? And one of the most well-known examples of this is when he says in Matthew 5, you have been taught to love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but I tell you this, love your enemies. May we shift even further. May our view grow beyond what it's been. In Eastern cosmology, in both the Hindu and Buddhist traditions, there is this beautiful image, and it's called Indra's net. And Indra's net essentially is this symbol that the entire universe is covered in this net. It's almost, if you were with us last week, it's almost like the blanket analogy, that the whole universe is a net, and it's all, there's nothing outside of it. And the beauty of this net, this concept of a net, is that really it's that everything is interconnected. Everything is held together. Nothing is ultimately separate because all are a part of that net. See, we love frameworks that help us understand the cosmos. And what if, like the framework of Indra's net, we might imagine a frame that is infinite, that holds infinite possibilities. But whether it's an expansion of love, like Jesus offers us, or an expansion of our view of the entire universe, these expansions require a letting go. For a bigger view to grow within ourselves, that smaller view, that smaller understanding of reality in some way has to die. It has to go away. For us to have a larger view of the world and the people in it, that view that doubles down on my tribe and my life and my needs and my desires, that view has to wither. It has to go away. And yet this can be so difficult just in daily life. Clearly it's been difficult in our society, a society that is very dug in because of fear. We're afraid, and often we're afraid of that which we don't understand. And that is so perfectly exemplified in what I would consider the mysterious other. And I use the word other not just as a noun, but also as a verb, because we all know that we can other people. You know what I mean? That we turn other people into an other, because we love to define ourselves. We love creating a self-definition. Our ego loves knowing exactly who we are, and more often than not, we know who we are by knowing who we're not. So it's self and other. There's a word for this. It's called schismogenesis, and it basically means to define yourself by what you're not. That maybe there are nations that define themselves by the people that they're nothing like. We're not our enemies, right? I mean, politically, we see this all over right now. I'm not those people, right? I'm nothing like them. It's a very teenage thing to do, right? You know, you're like, I don't know who I am, but I know I hate that, you know. But the thing about this tendency is that what we are doing is really projecting our own shadow onto the other. In some ways, we project our greatest fears, our worst qualities onto this other. We're projecting it onto them. It may not even be true at all. Think about what happened in the years following 9/11 in this country. How we projected our fears onto an entire religion, that anyone who is an adherent of Islam, all of a sudden, they begin to, for so many Americans, they begin to hold all these fears, when in fact these are just everyday regular people just like us. And yet for so many in this country, they became a representation of the other. And we've done this throughout history. Every nation has done this. And what's fascinating is that this also shows up in our ideas about life on other planets, that we often project some of our worst qualities and our deepest fears onto this mysterious other. See, for every cute baby Yoda or nostalgic beloved E.T., there is also a scary, fearsome invader, or this handsome fella. Now, what's so fascinating about these images is, you know, think about it, of what we know of the universe. And, you know, and we see in these images, you know, especially the last two, this idea of, you know, militaristic conquest, invader, we're going to come and invade you from outer space, and we're going to come enslave you. And yet, what's interesting is, in all of the known universe, what species is the most militaristic of all? Humans. In all of the known universe, what species is the only one known to actually do in work of invading? Humans, right? So we project our worst qualities, our worst fears onto this mysterious other. And this tendency, if we pay attention to it, it can be very practical in our own lives. It's something that we might call shadow projection, and we do it all the time. Any time and place that there is an other in your life, there's probably a good chance that you are projecting a little bit or a lot of your own shadow onto that person. Rob Bell talks about something he calls a South Star. See, we have North Stars, things we're pointing ourselves to, people that we admire and inspire us. But we also have South Stars, people that, well, I know I don't want to be like you. I know that I want to move away from that direction. And often our South Stars are people who we project onto them the very qualities that we have a hard time owning or accepting in ourselves. Think about cancel culture, how easy it's been, especially in this day and age, with all the digital tools that we have, to create an other, to say, well, I'm not this person, and I'm not like them, and so we're going to project all the worst qualities onto them instead of seeing them as a human being. When we create an enemy, we're really saying, you are everything that I'm not. Think about, you know, however you define yourself politically. Think about the most well-known politician from the opposing party. Yeah, I just say that. I don't even say any names, and already people tense up because that person most likely holds a lot of shadow energy. They are everything I'm not. They're everything I don't want to be, right? But if we can recognize this process, we recognize our shadow projection, I think it has an incredible invitation in our own lives to release some of that. You might be thinking, for a message about life on other planets, there hasn't been a lot of talk of aliens. And sure, do I think it's a possibility that there is life on other planets and that, who knows, maybe we may actually see some more confirmation of that? Sure, that's certainly a possibility. But I'm not, or, I'm interested. I'm interested in what that would look like, but I'm equally interested in what our reaction would be. As a world, as a society, how we would respond to that revelation. Would we make a common enemy? Or would we allow that revelation to be humbling, to give us a sense of our place in the universe, that we are part of something much larger and much more interconnected? Maybe just like the move from egocentric to ecocentric, we could also even move beyond that to something more universe-centric. In his recent book, Soul Boom, the author Rainn Wilson shares how as a young child he was really inspired spiritually by the show Star Trek, the original, if in case any purists out there, the original Star Trek. And what he shared was that, it was really inspiring of him to see this vision of humanity that had recognized that it was just one small piece of a larger cosmos. And in that recognition, it was able to come to a sense of peace, equality, unity. Here's what he says about it. What may be most important about Star Trek is that the human race has worked out its problems on planet Earth through both science and an emotional wisdom comprised of restraint, reason, and maturity. This spiritually and intellectually awakened humanity then seeks to spread and share its evolved nature while exploring the galaxy in a peaceful manner. That sounds like a beautiful, hopeful possibility, and certainly an invitation of what would happen if we discovered that we were not alone. But here's the thing. I don't care what you believe about whether or not we are alone in the cosmos. So much as I care, is that belief making you kinder? Is it making you humbler? Is it helping you be more present? Is it grounding you in love in the here and now? Because like any universe expanding event, it can always go both ways. We can expand right along with it, or we can double down. So while this reality remains a bit of a mystery to us, while we're still in this in-between space of, there's certainly a lot of possibility and there's interesting, different discoveries that may be pointing us towards a certain conclusion, while we're still in that liminal in-between space, why don't we do the soul-expanding work now? So that we can approach these conversations and potential new discoveries, not with fear, but with curiosity. And that work involves decentering, making that center larger than ourselves, maybe trying to expand that center to the size of the universe, so that, just as we sang earlier today, nothing is going to change my world. Maybe we could expand so much that any new discovery, any new information could fit inside this framework that is infinite in nature.